Thank you for choosing to spend your time here in this quiet sanctuary made just for you. One hopes you will find this story to be a gentle companion, a soft place to rest your thoughts, and a simple pathway toward peaceful and restorative sleep. Should this tale bring you comfort, your appreciation in the form of a like, a subscription, or a kind comment is received with the warmest gratitude. Tonight we will be visiting the Oraneth Garden, a place hidden from the hurried world. Here we shall walk on paths of soft earth, listen to the hum of murmur blooms, and watch as a most peculiar and wonderful fruit ripens on the vine, a fruit that contains a perfect edible silence. It is a world designed for pure respite, a gentle story crafted to quiet the mind and invite deep, untroubled calm. Chapter 1. The Walled Garden. It is a curious and wonderful thing how a simple gate can mark the boundary between one world and another. Vendrell stood before just such a gate, fashioned from smooth, silvered wood that felt warm to the touch, its grain worn into soft ripples by seasons of sun and gentle rain. It was set into a high, seamless wall of pale, sun-baked clay, which curved away on either side like a long, protective embrace. The world behind him, with its dusty roads and the distant, indistinct sounds of things, already felt like a half-remembered story. Here, a different kind of presence could be felt, a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate not in the air, but in the very bones of the earth, a deep and calming note that promised serenity. With a gentle push, the gate swung inward without a sound, as if opening a page in a very old and peaceful book. Vendrell stepped across the threshold, and the air itself seemed to change around him, growing soft and still, as if he had just entered a room where someone dear was sleeping. The gate clicked shut behind him, a quiet final sound that was not a locking, but a settling. The scent that met him was of clean, damp soil and a high, sweet perfume like night-blooming flowers, a comforting fragrance that spoke of careful, loving tending. He took a slow, deep breath, feeling a tension he hadn't known he was carrying begin to dissolve in the tranquil atmosphere. The path before him was not paved or cobbled, but made of dark, rich earth, compacted by patient footsteps into a surface that was wonderfully soft and yielding. It muffled the sound of his own steps, turning them into little more than quiet pressures on the ground. All around him, the foliage was a deep and restful green, with leaves broader and more verdant than any he had seen before. They formed a thick, gentle canopy overhead, through which the sunlight filtered in soft, dappled patterns, laying shifting mosaics of pale gold upon the dark soil. There were no harsh lines or sharp angles here, only soft curves and the gentle drooping of heavy, contented boughs. The most noticeable sensation after the initial piece was the sound. It was that same low, continuous hum he had felt outside the wall, but here it was a clear and present texture in the air. It was a sound like 1,000 tiny bells made of softest wool, or the contented sigh of the earth itself, a resonant frequency that seemed to vibrate in perfect harmony with a slow and steady heartbeat. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once, a foundational note upon which the garden's quiet was built. This gentle soundscape washed over him, a warm and pleasant tide that promised to carry away the flotsam of a busy mind, leaving only calm in its wake. He walked onward, his gaze drifting from one wonder to the next. He saw flowers with petals the color of a soft twilight sky, their bell-like heads nodding in a breeze he could not feel. He saw ferns that uncurled in slow, hypnotic spirals, their fronds a delicate, feathery lacework. The entire garden felt ancient and yet vibrantly alive, a place that operated on a different sense of time, where moments were measured not in the ticking of a clock, but in the slow unfurling of a leaf or the gentle deepening of a shadow. It was a world wholly sufficient unto itself. As the path curved gently, Fendrel saw the wall again and noticed for the first time the moss that grew upon its warm clay surface. It was a thick, springy carpet of the deepest green, and as he drew closer, he saw that it was not merely moss. Nestled within it were tiny nascent buds of soft gold. He reached out a hand, his fingers hovering just above the surface, and could feel a faint, pleasant warmth radiating from it, a living heat that felt as comforting as a hearth on a cool evening. The moss seemed to be sleeping, breathing in the gentle, filtered light of the afternoon. He found a simple bench carved from a single smooth piece of pale wood, placed in a small alcove where the path widened. He sat, the wood cool and solid beneath him, and simply allowed himself to be. He let the garden's atmosphere envelop him completely, a soft blanket of sights, sounds, and scents, the resonant hum of the air, the gentle warmth from the mossy wall, the clean smell of the earth, and the soft shifting light all worked in concert. He closed his eyes, feeling the slow, languid rhythm of the place begin to settle within him, a gentle and welcome weight that promised true rest. Fendrel did not know how long he sat there. Time had become a fluid, unimportant thing. When he opened his eyes again, the light had softened further, the gold deepening to a gentle, dusky rose. The hum of the garden seemed a little lower, a little more soothing, and the air felt cooler on his skin. He felt a profound sense of having arrived, of having found a place that his soul had been searching for without him even knowing it. This was the Oraneth Garden, and it was a place of deep and abiding peace. Chapter 2. The Silent Vines. As Fendrel sat in the deepening calm, he began to attune his senses to the garden's more subtle details, much like one's eyes adjust to a softly lit room. He noticed the way the broad, waxy leaves around him held the light, their surfaces gleaming with a soft internal luminescence. The air, he realized, carried not just one sweet scent, but a delicate tapestry of them, woven together so finely it was hard to distinguish one from the other. There was the clean scent of soil, certainly, but beneath it lay a note of honey, a whisper of something like rain on warm wood, and a faint, almost imperceptible fragrance of pure, cool water. Each breath was a quiet discovery, a gentle unfolding of the garden's peaceful secrets. A soft scuffing sound on the earthen path drew his attention. A figure was approaching, moving with an unhurried grace that seemed a part of the garden itself. It was Cassian, the tender of this quiet place. They were of an age that was impossible to guess, with kind eyes that held the patient wisdom of seasons, and hands that, though strong, moved with a practiced gentleness. They wore simple, soft clothing, the color of dried lavender, and carried a small copper watering can that shone with a dull, warm light. Cassian offered Fendrel a simple, welcoming smile that needed no accompanying words, a gesture of pure, uncomplicated kindness. Cassian gestured with a slight, gentle nod, inviting Fendrel to walk with them. They moved deeper into the garden, their quiet footfalls making barely a whisper on the soft earth. Cassian paused here and there, touching a leaf with a tender reverence or running a gentle hand over a budding flower. Their every action was a study in mindfulness, a slow and deliberate communion with the living things around them. Fendrel found himself naturally slowing his own pace, his own breathing, to match their serene rhythm. He was not a guest being given a tour, but a fellow traveler being shown the quiet wonders of a shared path. They soon arrived at the very heart of the garden, a small circular clearing where the resonant hum was at its most profound. Here, growing on a sturdy wooden trellis, were the somnus vines. Their leaves were magnificent, larger than a man's outstretched hand, with a texture like the softest velvet and a color of the deepest, most restful forest green. They seemed to drink the light, creating a patch of deep, cool shade beneath them. The vines themselves were thick and ancient, their woody stems twisting in slow, elegant spirals around the trellis. There was a palpable sense of peace that emanated from them, a stillness that was more than just a lack of sound. Cassian gestured to a small wooden table and 2 chairs set near the vines. "Please," they murmured, their voices soft as the rustle of leaves, "sit for a while." From a simple woven basket, Cassian produced a small ceramic teapot and 2 handleless cups. They poured a fragrant, steaming liquid into each, the pale amber tea releasing a comforting aroma of chamomile and something warm and spicy, like cinnamon. The steam rose in a slow, lazy curl, mingling with the sweet air of the garden. The simple act felt like a ceremony, an offering of warmth and quiet companionship that was deeply soothing. They sat together in a comfortable and unbroken silence, sipping the warm, sweet tea. The heat from the cup seeped into Fendrel's hands, a pleasant grounding warmth that spread up his arms and into his chest. He watched the massive velvety leaves of the somnus vines stir in a slow, almost imperceptible current of air. They did not rustle or flutter, but simply swayed with a heavy, languid grace. Being near them felt like standing at the edge of a deep, still pool of water, its surface perfectly calm, its depths holding a profound and ancient quiet. Cassian finally spoke, their voice a low murmur that blended perfectly with the garden's hum. "They drink the noise," they said, their gaze fixed lovingly on the vines. "All the hurried sounds of the world, all the anxious chatter of a mind, they draw it in so that their fruit might be quiet." The explanation was so simple, so poetic, that Fendrel accepted it as one accepts the warmth of the sun or the coolness of shade. It was a simple, wonderful truth of this place. The vines were not just plants, they were keepers of the silence. As twilight began to weave its soft gray threads into the fabric of the afternoon, a new magic began. The glow moss on the distant walls started to awaken. A single soft pulse of golden light appeared, then another and another, until the entire wall was breathing with a slow, steady, rhythmic glow. The light was warm and gentle, casting long, soft shadows that danced in a silent, peaceful ballet. The sight, combined with the warmth of the tea and the profound stillness of the somnus vines, filled Fendrel with a sense of contentment so deep and pure, it felt like coming home. Chapter 3. The Ripening. The days in the Oraneth Garden passed not as a succession of hours, but as a gentle, flowing current. Fendrel's awareness, once occupied with the measure of time, now turned to the garden's own subtle and lovely rhythms. He learned the soft, pearlescent quality of the morning light as it first touched the highest leaves, and the deep, velvety texture of the shadows in the late afternoon. He was no longer just an observer of this deep engagement with calming magic and natural beauty. He He was becoming a part of it, his own inner world slowly attuning to the serene frequency of the garden. His purpose became simply to be present, to witness the quiet unfolding of life around him. His attention was most often drawn to the somnus vines. He would spend long, peaceful stretches of time simply sitting on the smooth wooden bench, watching them. He noticed how their great velvety leaves seemed to angle themselves throughout the day, catching the softest parts of the light. Following Cassian's gentle example, he would sometimes reach out and touch a leaf, marveling at its downy texture, a surface that seemed to absorb not just light, but the warmth of his hand, giving back a feeling of profound coolness and peace. The vines exuded an ancient, sleeping energy, a sense of life lived at a pace far slower and wiser than his own. He began to observe the fruit, the hush melons, in their slow, deliberate process of ripening. When he first truly noticed them, they were small, pale green spheres nestled amongst the large leaves. As the days flowed by, he watched them swell and grow, their color deepening from a pale, misty green to a soft, gentle lavender. Their skin, which had been smooth, began to develop a fine, downy texture, like the cheek of a ripe peach. Cassian would tend to them with infinite care, gently rotating a fruit to ensure it received even shade, their hands moving with the certainty of long practice and deep affection. A most curious phenomenon accompanied their ripening. The tangible cushion of silence around the vines grew more profound with each passing day. At first it was a subtle effect, a gentle dampening of the garden's constant hum. But as the hush melons deepened in their color toward a rich, velvety purple, the quiet became a palpable presence. It was a stillness so complete that Vendrell felt he could press his hand against it, like a soft, invisible wall. It muted the already quiet sounds of the garden into mere echoes, and even the sound of his own gentle breathing seemed to be absorbed by the air around the trellis. Evenings were a time of soft, encompassing magic. Vendrell developed a quiet ritual of walking the earthen paths as dusk settled, watching the glow moss on the high clay walls awaken. The slow, steady pulse of its warm, golden light was a deeply comforting sight, a silent, rhythmic heartbeat for the entire garden. The light it cast was never harsh. It was a gentle, living glow that made the deep greens of the foliage seem richer and the shadows softer. He would often pause and lay a palm flat against the wall, feeling the gentle, living warmth seep into his skin, a sensation as soothing as a warm blanket. One evening, Cassian joined him on his walk, carrying 2 steaming mugs. The liquid within smelled of warm milk and honey, a simple, comforting scent that felt like a childhood memory. They stood together, watching the golden light pulse around them, the slow rhythm seeming to match their own slowed heartbeats. "They will be ready soon," Cassian murmured, their gaze drifting towards the dark, quiet shape of the somnus vines. "The quiet is almost full." The words held a simple, happy anticipation, the gentle excitement of a baker watching a loaf of bread rise perfectly. Vendrell felt a profound sense of peace settle over him, a feeling of being exactly where he was supposed to be. The worries and thoughts of the world he had known before felt impossibly distant, like sounds from across a wide, calm ocean. Here, in the heart of the garden, there was only the gentle pulse of the moss, the warm comfort of the drink in his hands, and the deep, growing silence of the ripening fruit. He was learning the garden's language, a language spoken not in words, but in light, scent, and a stillness that was full of life. The air grew cool and sweet with the scent of night-blooming jasmine from a hidden corner of the garden. The sky visible above the walls was a deep star-dusted indigo, and the moon was a soft silvery sliver. In the gentle pulsing light of the glow moss, surrounded by the deep hum of the murmur blooms and the profound living quiet of the vines, Fendrel felt a quiet joy. He was witnessing a slow, gentle magic, a wonder that asked for nothing but his patient, peaceful attention. Chapter 4. The Harvest. A new quality had settled into the air of the Oraneth Garden, a sense of peaceful acceptance so profound it felt like a held breath. Fendrel found his own thoughts had quietened, a constant stream becoming a slow, meandering river, his focus drawn completely to the simple, profound presence of the now. He no longer anticipated or remembered, he simply was. The garden had taught him the art of being still, of finding a universe of wonder in the veined pattern of a single leaf, or the slow, deliberate journey of a dewdrop. His heart felt calm and full, prepared for the quiet culmination of the season's gentle work. The morning of the harvest arrived not with any grand announcement, but with a particular quality of light, soft and silvery, and a stillness in the air that was even deeper than before. Cassian appeared with a small, shallow basket woven from pale willow reeds, its interior lined with soft, dry moss. They approached the somnus vines with a slow, reverent pace that turned the simple act of walking into a meditation. Their hands held a pair of small, sharp shears made of dark, polished wood, which they handled with the care a scribe might afford a precious pen. Fendrel watched as Cassian began the slow and thoughtful ritual. They would pause before each ripe hushmelon, observing it for a long moment, their head tilted as if listening to its silence. The fruits were now a deep, dusky purple, the color of a twilight sky just before the stars appear, and their downy skin seemed to shimmer softly in the gentle light. With a movement that was both precise and tender, Cassian would cup a fruit in one hand, feeling its satisfying weight, before bringing the wooden shears to the stem. The snip was a tiny, crisp sound, the only sharp note in the garden's symphony of softness, and it was immediately swallowed by the profound quiet. Each harvested fruit was placed in the willow basket with the utmost care, nestled gently into its bed of soft moss. Cassian moved from one to the next, their focus absolute, their expression one of serene contentment. It was not work, Fendrel realized, but a conversation. It was a quiet exchange of gratitude between the tender and the vine, a culmination of a season of patient watching and gentle care, the basket slowly filled with the dark, beautiful orbs, each one a small vessel of perfect, cultivated peace. When the harvest was complete, Cassian turned to Fendrel, the basket held carefully in their arms. They carried it to the small wooden table and with a warm smile selected the most perfect of the hushmelons and offered it to him. Fendrel took it, his hands cupping its gentle weight. The fruit was surprisingly heavy, dense and solid, and its skin felt wonderfully soft against his palms, like the finest velvet. He brought it close, inhaling its unique scent. It was not sweet or fruity, but smelled of clean, cool earth after a rain, of deep shade, and of stillness itself. Cassian gave a small, encouraging nod. Fendrel raised the fruit and took a gentle bite. The flesh was soft and yielding, and there was no explosion of flavor on his tongue. There was no sweetness, no tartness, no taste at all. Instead, there was a sensation, a wave of the most profound and absolute silence he had ever known. It began in his mouth and washed through his entire being, a cool, clean tide of pure tranquility. It was not merely an absence of sound, but a positive presence of quiet, a gentle force that smoothed away the very texture of thought. The last lingering echoes of the world outside, the half-formed worries, the phantom conversations, all of it simply dissolved. It was as if a perfectly soft, clean cloth had been gently wiped across the slate of his mind, leaving it clear and beautifully empty. His breathing slowed, his muscles relaxed completely, and a feeling of deep, unshakable calm settled into his very core. He felt weightless and wonderfully grounded all at once, a part of the garden's deep, abiding peace. He looked at Cassian, whose eyes were full of a kind, knowing warmth. No words were needed. The shared experience, the gentle gift of the harvest, was a language all its own. He took another bite of the hush melon, letting the wave of perfect silence wash over him again, each one deeper and more restorative than the last. He felt as though he were drinking pure starlight, or eating the very substance of a peaceful dream. It was the most wonderful nourishment he had ever known. Chapter 5. The Lingering Quiet. In the days that followed the harvest, Fendrel felt wholly and completely restored, as if some deep internal spring had been replenished. The peace of the Oraneth Garden had seeped into him, becoming not just something he experienced, but something he was. He knew with a gentle certainty that held no sadness that it was time to continue his journey. He had been given a gift of profound quiet, and now he was ready to carry that peace back into the world, a soft lantern glowing within his heart. The silence of the hush melon was no longer just a memory of a sensation. It had become a permanent part of his inner landscape. It was a gentle, resonant hum in his very soul, a quiet, spacious place he could retreat to with a simple turn of his thoughts. The constant low-level chatter of the mind had ceased, replaced by a calm and spacious awareness. He felt as though the garden had retuned him to a more natural, peaceful frequency, one that he would carry with him wherever he went. On the morning of his departure, he found Cassian by the somnus vines, gently pruning away old leaves to make way for new growth. They worked in comfortable silence for a time, the soft snip of the shears the only sound in the quiet air. When it was time to go, Fendrel stood at the simple wooden gate, the same gate he had entered what felt like a lifetime ago. He turned to Cassian, and in that shared, quiet gaze, a world of gratitude was exchanged. A simple warmth passed between them, an understanding that transcended any need for farewells. Cassian placed a small, cloth-wrapped bundle into Fendrel's hands. Inside were 2 more hush melons, their velvety purple skins cool to the touch. "For the path," Cassian murmured, their voice a soft blessing. It was a gift not of food, but of continued peace, a small piece of the garden's sanctuary to take with him. Fendrel accepted with a grateful nod, his heart full. He felt the comforting, solid weight of the fruits in his pack, a tangible reminder of the quiet he now possessed. He pushed the gate open, its silent swing revealing the path beyond. As he stepped back out of the garden, the world did not rush in with a cacophony of sound as he might have once expected. Instead, it seemed softer, its edges less sharp. The distant chirping of a bird sounded sweeter, the rustle of leaves in a common tree seemed more musical, and the colors of the wildflowers along the path appeared more gentle and clear. The garden had not shut the world out. It had simply taught him how to listen to its quieter, more beautiful songs. He walked on with a lighter step, the path ahead feeling not like a challenge, but like a welcome invitation. The sun was warm on his shoulders, a gentle, pleasant weight. A soft breeze stirred the air, carrying the scent of wild herbs and warm dust, and it felt like a friendly caress on his cheek. Everything he experienced was filtered through the lens of the deep calm he now carried within. The world had not changed, but he had, and that had made all the difference. As he walked, he could feel the gentle, resonant hum of the garden still with him, a quiet and constant companion. It was the hum of the murmur blooms, the memory of the pulsing glow moss, and the deep, abiding silence of the somnus vines. The lingering quiet of the Oraneth Garden was a permanent gift, a serene inner space that would shelter him, soothe him, and gently guide him on his way. He smiled, a soft, contented expression, and continued his journey into the gentle, welcoming world. He knew that whenever he needed it, he could close his eyes, take a slow breath, and return to that quiet, sun-dappled clearing in his mind. He could feel the soft earth beneath his feet, hear the garden's peaceful hum, and taste once more the perfect edible silence. The peace was his now, to keep forever.